I have to take a group photo for all of you. So this will help us to promote our MuleSoft meetup in a MuleSoft meetup portal. So Wes, can you please take a screenshots for all the group members? And let me stop my sharing, and please, all of you, can you please on your camera so we can take a screenshot for your picture?
Yes, please.
Wes, please let me know when you take the pictures, so we can move forward.
Yes, I'm just waiting for everybody to open the cameras.
So, Wes, is it done?
Yes, just a moment.
Okay, and even you can swap to the next page for the other members as well.
Yes, I know this. One moment.
We have the trivia, right?
Yes, it's done now. You can start the meeting, the presentation, resume the presentation.
Okay, okay, I'm going to resume my screen now. So please let me know when you're able to see my screen.
It's visible.
Okay, so for the today's agenda, we have introduction to Anypoint Platform, and then we're introducing API-led connectivity, and what is in the API-led connectivity. Also, we'll discuss about the previous architectures, and then we will discuss the benefits of API-led connectivity, and then we will discuss the application network, how we can build the application network, and also the C4E concept. And then we will discuss the future plans for our next meetup. And at the end of the meeting, we have a questions and answer, and we will discuss if you have any questions. So let me call Avas to continue for the Anypoint introduction to Anypoint platform. Avas.
Thank you, Zubair. Let me know when you are seeing my screen.
Yes, yes, I can able to see your screen. You can continue, please.
Okay. So first of all, before gradually jumping into the formal definitions and formal introduction of Anypoint platform, just let me give you a brief introduction, background information about what basically is integration and why we need to do it and what is happening in the current market right now. So basically the market has evolved quite a lot in the recent years. There are some actors, stakeholders, and other businesses have changed a lot. There's been an explosion of APIs is creating a, you can see a massive integration wave. Even the development has moved from traditional extensive coding to composing APIs together and bonding the different systems and applications and devices to each other, thus creating a new middleware architecture is being born, and we're witnessing it right now. So MuleSoft here have a complete quality suite from providing complete integration architecture and obviously a very good one and latest one, a unified platform and state-of-the-art tools and different EIPs to cater the needs efficiently and effectively. So formally starting here the introduction, as you can see, the Anypoint platform is basically an integration platform as a service. It is a web application, a product of MuleSoft, which is obviously now a Salesforce company. Anypoint platform is unified, hybrid, highly productive integration platform that allows us, the developers, to create a seamless network of applications, data, and devices. There are different runtimes to tools and frameworks, some libraries provided by Anypoint platform in the web application, basically for to make it used to ourselves. The runtime is basically used to run and deploy our actual applications and API either in the cloud or in on-premises servers. There are some tools and frameworks for creating the APIs, building simpler Mule applications to obviously creating complex Mule applications. There is a shared library to store some of our assets. Let me just tell you what by assets what I mean. Basically, the assets comprise of the APIs, your applications, your templates, your accelerators, that you can view and test them, and it can be used by other developers and stakeholders within your organization. Moving forwards, this is basically a view of all the components which MuleSoft Anypoint platform provides you. At the top left corner, you can see Anypoint Design Center. This Design Center basically gives you three things. A local studio, which you can download, and this studio is basically used to design and implement your actual APIs. Obviously, for complex scenarios and complex for when implementing complex flows and data integrations, you will have to use the studio where it has more EIPs and it is better suited to that need. The secondly, the API designer, it is REML based, and you can basically create mocking services and you can design your implementation even begins. This basically is used in the design phase of your design phase of your use case. The connected FK, basically this is the flow designer, in which this is a low code environment basically used by non-expert developers or some executives where you can develop simpler flows or simpler data integrations. In the middle, you can see the Anypoint Exchange. As I've mentioned earlier, this is basically the shared library, the shared resource where all the assets are published, and hence that they can be consumed from there by other developers and other stakeholders within your organization. In the right, you have Anypoint Management Center. This management center contains the runtime manager, the API manager, analytics engine. The runtime manager, basically this is a manager where you can manage your runtimes, the servers where your APIs are basically being run and are deployed. You can set different policies and configure your nodes. You can set high availability settings there. You can even set different nodes and the code. You can set the number of codes. Also, you set the load balancing type of things there. In API manager, these you can set stuff like this. You control the traffic of your API here. In analytics, you basically visualize and monitor your APIs, your applications based on some predefined metrics, or you can also define your own metrics upon them. The Mule runtime engine below this engine, basically here your application or the APIs are running. The second one is the most important, basically Anypoint connectors. MuleSoft basically Anypoint gives you some out of the box connectors and components, the EIPs, basically to connect to different services, to earn systems and devices. An example of this is a Salesforce connector. It's a very good connector. You can seamlessly Salesforce CRM. Others are runtime services and hybrid cloud. In hybrid cloud, there's a possibility and option given by MuleSoft. You can even deploy some mixture of your applications and APIs. A mixture of them is deployed in the cloud, in Cloud Hub, or some of them are deployed in your on-premise service, but they give you a unified view of your services running. So moving forwards, this is basically an actual pictorial view of how the web application of Anypoint platform looks like. In the left menu bar, you can see the Anypoint platform, the design center, exchange, the management center. The management center consists of the API manager, runtime manager, visualizer, monitor, and the access management area. This is basically access management area is used by the DevOps team basically to control access to your this Anypoint platform of your organization. They have the access to it. They can restrict access, they can give access certain items to the developers, to architects, to executives based on their roles and responsibilities. So the next section is Zubair will be taking over, and so he will introduce you the API-led connectivity. So over to you, Zubair.
Thanks, Avas. Please let me know when you're able to see my screen.
Yes, it's visible now.
So our next topic is introduction to API-led connectivity. Today, in the age of APIs, an API is not just a technical interface on the top of database or your systems or your new systems or over the a layer over the systems. So in the past, the APIs were seen the tools for the developers, but nowadays their scopes are limited to the internal use, not limited to the internal use. Actually, APIs are exposed for their APIs for external users and over the globe. For example, the Google APIs use the Uber APIs to calculate the fare and the travel time for calculations. This API business model is a new way of thinking and how we engage the customers through the APIs. So before going to the API-led connectivity, let me discuss some of the traditional approaches, the old architecture. The first architecture, which is a monolithic architecture. A monolithic architecture could be defined as the first architecture. It's a simple and a tightly coupled applications. They are executed in a simple application layer or a group of all the functionalities. For example, if we want to access a service or a system through an API, we must develop a business logic as well as the error management and so on in the application itself. The following diagram shows a simple CRM relationship management. If you see, let me change the slide. So here you see we have application server, and on the application server we deployed the web application, and this web application is further connected to the end system, which is SAP, mailing server, APIs, and Salesforce, and the database system. So in this application, we have a single group, which all the functionalities are there. For example, add to cart, delete cart, and the other functionalities are in a single phase. But in this architecture, we have some problems. For the small companies, this architecture maybe they work well, but when the architect grows, the application is more complex and it's very complex to manage and refactor. If we have in future, we have to add any other module or any other service in this architecture, then it would be very difficult for us to add a module, or it would be impossible to accomplish. And also there is a communication, there is no ESB interface between these layers. So the communication is one-to-one. So it's even increased the level of difficulty when it comes implementing communication of web services. For example, a web service which is in a Java application, and then we have to communicate with the SOAP service, then it would be a very complex to interact with these applications. So for the solution of that, for that architecture, we have a service-oriented architecture. So service-oriented architecture in which we can include we can communicate between the applications over a communication protocol, which would be a REST APIs or a SOAP APIs, HTTP or XML, you can say that. The architect that allows to centralize all the business logic and allow the communication between services, application, regardless to the technologies and languages, and in the fast and simple way. However, there is one problem which may persist. And what was the problem? The problem is all the applications are deployed in a single runtime. For example, if you see, we can combine our logic in a service bus, and here we have all the functionalities here, and we have the web application and mobile application which is communicating with the service bus. In future, if we have any other system or application, we can also communicate with this service bus. And this service bus is responsible for connecting with the SAP and all the other end systems. But there is a problem with all the applications or all the functionalities are deployed in a single runtime, which is when we change any configuration in runtime, it will apply it for all deployed applications. So this problem will remains exist for this service-oriented architecture. For the solution of this problem, we have a microservice architecture. Microservice architecture is just like a service-oriented architecture, but it will be divided into a smaller independent services. There would be a lot of complexity as there are many small actors involved, but the advantage is all are isolated and independent. As you see, in this diagram, we have divided our this functionality into different layers, which we have experience layer, process layer, and system layer. We will further discuss these layers, but these are independent services. So if we want to change any service, like we have to change in card functionality, we do not going to change any of other functionality. We just change this functionality, and this will not impact our other systems. And also, we have the system API, which only responsible for connecting the end system like SAP, databases, and the system. So now come back to the topic, which is API-led connectivity. MuleSoft has evolved and has no longer just middleware with SOA architecture. Now it's focused on architecture of microservices and its integration of services like service as a platform or integration service as a platform. So Anypoint platform in this way, through its Cloud Hub storage platform, integration with the Anypoint platform, you can deploy applications, and all the applications are deployed separately, and even every application you can deploy in a separate runtime. For example, one application you deploy on a 3.7 version, another application you can deploy on a 4x version. So there is a very leverage in the Anypoint platform. You can deploy each an application in a different you can say that environments. So the API-led connectivity is a methodological way to connect data application through reusable and purposeful APIs. The main purpose of API-led connectivity is the main purpose is the reusability. If we develop an API, and it will actually, you can reuse that API in further projects. So let's discuss the categories which API-led connectivity fall. Actually, API-led connectivity fall in three categories: the system APIs, process APIs, and experience APIs. So system APIs, as I discussed earlier, the system APIs usually access the core systems of records and provide the means of insulation and user from complexity or any change underlying the system. So once the system API is developed, you can reuse into the multiple projects. For example, if you create a system API which connects with the SAP system, and later on within your organization, there is another project which you have to use to connect with the SAP system, you can reuse that API with other project, and this will reduce your development cost. And then we have a process API. Process API actually are the business logic where you define your business logic. For example, you have two systems. The first one is order system, and the other one is a customer system. And you have two APIs which you develop in system APIs, and then you will take these APIs into the process level APIs, and you define a business logic over there that you get the customer over specific order, and then you will create a payload and then send it to the experience level API. So what are the experience level APIs? Experience level APIs are interact with the process level APIs, and for the output end user. End user may be a web service, end user may be another system, or end user may be a Postman collection, which the user can only get the data in JSON, or it may be a SOAP UI where he can get that value in Example. So here you see an example for the three-layered architecture, which is API-led connectivity. For example, as I told you earlier, we have an order system, and which is communicating with this order APIs. And we have two customer-related APIs, the Salesforce API and the customer-related API. And we are combining this API in another system-level API, which is customer API. And in the process level API, we have the business logic where we're maintaining the order history, order status, and these two APIs further used by the experience APIs, which is a web API or a mobile application API. Later on in the future, if we add another API, which is a shipment status, and we only want to use this API with the mobile application. So without changing our previous logic, we introduce the two systems which are used for the shipment. For example, the UPS and the toll. These two shipments are then processed, having shipment status API in the process level, and this process level API is then consumed by the mobile application, which is in the experience level API. Later on, if you have any if you want to use the shipment API with the web application, you can easily use by connecting with this shipment API. So let's see in the Anypoint platform in perspective. So in Anypoint platform perspective, as the Avaz told you earlier, that we have different components. We have access management, we have a runtime manager, we have a design center. So with the security purposes, if we have a project, and for example, we have a system which is SAP, mainframe, and FTP, and the database system, and we develop these system level APIs, and these system level APIs are only controlled by the central IT. So we can authenticate and authorize the central IT to this API specifically. And then in the process level API, as I said earlier, we have a business logic here. So the line of business users and developers are control this API, and we have give access to these line of business users to this API. And for the experience level APIs are the only the application developers, where they can use the application for the end system like mobile applications or any other system. So we also have a concept of C4E. C4E is actually the maintaining, it's auto maintaining. So Avas will explain you in later slides what is C4E and how it is important for our development. So let's discuss some benefits of API-led connectivity. So as you see, for the system APIs, as I give you the example before, if we want to replace the system, for example, if we have a SAP API, and in future we want to replace with the Salesforce API. So we just need to change the system API, and without affecting the process or experience API, we can easily change that API. And in the process level API, if we create a business logic for any order creation, and we can reuse that whenever it is necessary. And also in the experience API, it is actually a basically experience layer for interacting with the outer user. For example, if you create a application and which is using the JSON data, and another application which requires the same data but in another format, which is XML format. So you don't need to go back to the process level API to changing anything. You just need to add another transformer which only converts the JSON data into XML, and then we will use it. So as you see, the independent of services, the main proper architect, which is microservice architecture, here we are using. So there are some other benefits which we are using, that we deliver the project on time, we deliver the project within budget, we also meet the requirements, we have reusable components, as I give you many examples for reusable components. We have loose coupling. For example, we have to change any application, any API without affecting another API. And also we have a governance built in, which means you have a maintenance capability. So the maintenance is very, you can say that easy for us in this architecture. Then we have a building an application network. Vats, it's over to you. Please start with the building application network.
Thank you, Zubair. There were some questions popping in the chat window here. Would you like to answer them now, or you can be answering? We can answer them in the later question answer session.
Yes, we will answer in a question answer sessions. You can continue with the session, and after that, at the end of the meeting, we will answer these questions.
Okay, sure. Please let me know when you are able to see my screen.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So basically, as we started from introducing you the Anypoint platform, what it offers you, what integration and middleware actually is, why we need it, and then we gave you an idea of what is an API-led connectivity architecture looks like, what were the other different procedures and approaches used in conventional methods and in traditional ways, and what MuleSoft has, how MuleSoft has evolved and enhanced this architecture now. So you basically, during the session with Zubair, you basically made your first use case, or you implemented your first project into you divided them into layers, and you achieved your the API-led connectivity in your first project. So what is next? Obviously, this doesn't stop here. An enterprise, an organization and the integration, it enhances, it evolves, and it is in a continuous improvement. It is improving continuously. So what is next from here after achieving API-led connectivity? The next basically thing is we build an application network. So what is it basically? You can it is more, it will be more clear in this picture. As you can see, the first project which you build is already been embedded in the network, in the organization, and the blue ones are the APIs, other are the system, the CRM, SAP system, and some of the devices and end systems. These are interconnected and integrated with each other via APIs. So this was one of the use case and one of the project which we successfully implemented. But as you can see in the picture, there are other end systems, other devices, other data sources, and many other different interfaces which need to be connected and integrated within the organization. Obviously, the business evolves, the business flourishes, and as the business expands, there will eventually come new use cases and new business requirements. So you can see this is an ocean of apps and systems which are not connected, interconnected. These are the only first of the project, the first use case is connected here. So this is not an application network. You have achieved a single step of the application network. What follows is this one, and an intermediate step. You see, as the different use cases come, you integrate them. Either instead of a single project, there are multiple projects, and you start embedding them in the application network. You can see the blue ones APIs are expanding, and so are the systems and devices and other interfaces, and thus giving a rise to an application network. So this is an intermediate step, and finally you will get this one, a final product where everything is interconnected with each other, integrated, fully integrated in the organization, and every system, every device can basically talk to each other and basically get data to, and basically gives rise to a B2B application network within a single organization. You can see it emerged via bottom up, and it is and it via self-service. By self-service will means when new systems and when new requirements come, it emerges, and so giving rise to an application network. As you can see, there are many benefits to this. You can easily see provides clear visibility, traceability, security, and governability at every API node. In case of any support or maintenance issue, you can pinpoint where the issue actually was, and you can straightly go there. It is recomposable. It does not bend, or it basically bends. It does not break. Its extension is easy. While in this full-fledged network, you can even embed more use cases, and you can spread this to infinite bounds. There's no bounds to it, basically. So this basically expands, and it takes us to our next topic, that is the C4E, or the Center for Enablement, basically. So as I mentioned earlier, an organization has achieved your API-led connectivity architecture, and as the use cases are coming, you are building an application network, and now you have fully made your application network, and it's working, it's fine, it's great. Now is the last and final step, and this basically, this is the excellency step, you can say. Obviously, the organization strives to reach excellency. When you have implemented some good things and you have implemented better things, now it's time for the best one. And basically, this is Center for Enablement. Basically, it is used to streamline all of the organization processes coming under the roof of enterprise integration. So the last of the step is to establish the C4E so that you can flourish and you can continually improve within the field of your enterprise integration in your organization. So as you can see, Center for Enablement is a new IT operating model. Basically, it enables your enterprise to build a reusable assets, accumulate the APIs, and leverage best practices and knowledge to enable self-service via your efficiently delivering your projects, and implement solutions in faster and scalable manner. Instead of let me explain it a little further. Instead of treating each IT challenge as a single or independent project, the C4 introduces a continuous delivery framework. Basically, it in which assets are generated during one of the phase. Let me say the first initial project, there were some assets, which means the templates, accelerators, or APIs, which were built in first phase, and they are used in the later phases to come, or the later use cases in the later or in the future projects to come, and they become an integral part of every phase of the project that follows. From there are other steps, there are other processes and engagements within the C4E, like from onboarding new developers and their trainings, their compliance trainings, their certifications, and ensure building of new assets and reusing and recomposing new assets. The quality of work is uniform and unified throughout the organization. And even with this, the monitoring, accountability, visibility, and management for executives and other managers is also being put to effective use here. So basically every process is, the C4E sits in the middle, basically, and every process from central IT, innovation teams, and the line of business, basically their processes are streamlined via it. Basically, they're driven through while adhering to its principles. So let me move a bit of the to the next slide. There are some of you can see steps to how to set up a C4E. Basically, these steps are sequential in nature. You have to follow one by one after the another. Basically, the first and the foremost step is you have to access the organization's integration capability. It is important that you understand what's your organization's current need for integration is, what will be the integration in future, are there some APIs already developed, what type of APIs can or integration use cases can occur in the future, and what is the basically maturity model of your organization in terms of different like strategy, organization, community, governance, architecture, and project delivery. The second one is you have to establish the C4E operating model. If you basically you define that how your organization is going to adhere to this model and how it will implement it and execute its processes according to this. You must decide the roles and responsibilities within the C4E. You will define KPIs to monitor developer engagement and their productivity and the consumption of assets. Third one, you will build and publish the foundational assets. By foundational assets, I mean the initial set of assets like some templates or some document of best practices, or you can say some API specifications or some API fragments. You can say that you will build an engagement layer. MuleSoft provides the engagement layer in form of the Anypoint exchange, the shared library where you put the assets, publish them with their documentation and specification, and the developers who need those assets in their projects will definitely use them in their project. The fourth one is evangelize the C4E. In this, you have to basically create a sense of urgency within the employees of the organization and the integration team that you have to adhere to its principles. You have to tell them their importance. You have to tell them the C4E's significance and the principles of reuse, and self-service, so that they are they are all on the same page, and they implement their integration flows and their projects according to C4E principles. The final one, basically, it's just you have to drive the consumption of assets, because as I mentioned earlier, the success of C4E is basically based on how much your assets are being consumed. It's average in the organization. So you have to define a system in which you will ensure that your assets are being consumed uniformly across the board. So quality in one of the projects is reflected in all other projects. Whether a developer comes or go, whether a developer has some sort of skill set or others have different sort of skill set, the C4E basically ensures that quality and uniformity is across the board. Lastly, as I've mentioned, I've basically discussed what is C4E, what are the steps to establish C4E, and these are some of the activities involved. As you can see, in C4E processes, you have to give the people a technology platform. When you're talking about MuleSoft, so MuleSoft gives you the Anypoint platform. It gives you an architecture. Obviously the API-led connectivity architecture. It vouches for it. It gives enablement and evangelization techniques. Obviously, persuade your team members, the people to adhere by its rules and regulations provided by C4E and create awareness. You can even do compliance training here in your enterprise. Productization, basically this means you can use some of the best practices guides or documents, how to design your API, how to brand your API. You manage the central marketplace, that is basically the exchange for basically supplying the assets and reusing or recomposing some assets. You provide some necessary tools, the EIPs, in which you give the developer the specific components and connectors who can he can develop integration scenarios and tools. You have to give some governance tools, automated governance and monitoring tools to the executives and the managers, so that they can basically check on the KPIs and productivity within the C4E and how everybody is doing. And obviously the accelerators and or the templates which every developer or every which are basically reused in every other coming project. For example, in accelerators you can say like a logging mechanism or a security mechanism or some error handling techniques. These are basically, you make them as an accelerator, and mostly the similar type of error handling techniques and logging, basically they are reused in every other project to come. So this was all from all from our side from today's presentation. I will just share a couple of things here. Basically, I will all invite everybody to join our network on MuleSoft meetups page. Lahore, there will be many coming meetups in Lahore, either virtual or when the lockdown is lifted, we will have good physical meetups too. We will really like your feedback. You can give your feedback in this Lahore MuleSoft meetup in the website there. Please do give your feedback. It will be very encouraging and helpful for us. You can contact your organization organizer Mohammed Zubair and me, obviously, you can give some feedbacks to us personally, and you can also suggest some topics which we will be discussing in our later and coming up meetups. You can also suggest dates according to your suitability. There are some exciting news about the future of this meetup group. So Zubair will be sharing those news and updates with you. So over to you, Zubair.
So where is mute?
So now able to hear me? Hello? Okay. So we have a news and update for the future meetups, and the first news, which is from the MuleSoft, which is Digital Connect. MuleSoft is going to virtual, they're going live their virtual experiences, and they are providing the educational session free online. You can register with according to your region. The North Central America, it would be on May 20th, and Europe, Middle East, and Africa, it would be on June 4, and on Japan and Asia Pacific region, we have on June 25. So you can just go to the link below and just register yourself, and it is free. Okay, so now let's me discuss something about our sponsor for our next meetup. So HR Knowledge Cafe, HKC. So they will be our next sponsor for our next meetups. Knowledge Cafe is a multidisciplinary forum for HR professionals with their mission to connect the integral through social activities of HR consultancies and practices, and partially reduce industrial academic And HKC has 200 plus IT companies professionally, and especially from Lahore. They are ideally choice to market a MuleSoft directly among those HR leaders who can influence respective management to get the more engaged on MuleSoft. So there will be, we will be using their platform for our future meetups, and it will be a great opportunity to interact with HR of a big IT companies of Pakistan and a bridge gap between the academic and the IT resources with companies. So next, let me introduce our future speakers. So our next future speaker would be Syed Farooq Hassan. He is a software integration specialist. He has almost 15 plus years of experience in integrations, API development, and B2B integration solutions. And also he worked as an architect, and he involved with the business owners, analysts, and he worked with analysis and requirement gathering and optimizing solutions. Actually, all the are his key areas. And then we have Zahir Ahmed Chaudhary. He is also a MuleSoft developer and a certified architect, and he has working with the MuleSoft since 2015. He has almost 20 years of experience in project management, design, development, and implementation, integration, and many other enterprise solutions application he worked on. He worked as a team lead with the different multicultural and international technical teams. So his primary job is architecting and developing enterprise solutions and integration solutions. So that is what we have in the presentation. Now we have a question answer. So I see some question in the chat window. Let me open the chat window so we will answer one by one.
Zubair?
Yes, Abbas.
I would urge that Farooq Hassan and Zahir are here, so we can basically give them the control to answer the questions, so can everybody can know that they can interact with our future speakers also.
Yes, exactly. Let me unmute. So both of you are unmuted. So our first question, which is from, let me go to the chat.
Salam everyone. Hi.
Hi,
This is Farooq.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. It was a great session. It was nice to see you guys. And I really appreciate your efforts in especially launching this as a platform and introducing about MuleSoft and gathering people. So it's a good start, and I hope we can build up on it. And our future sessions, I mean, are like we are providing knowledge and relevant experience to all the audience from our different areas that we work on. So I mean, I hope this is going to help all of us.
Yes, definitely. So the first question is from Sohail Singh. So the question was, does the response time increase with using a multiple layered architecture? So let me ask something. Then Farooq, you will continue. Actually, the response time will increase a bit. It totally depends upon your design. When you design it should be designed carefully. You can, if you implement a proper caching policy, then the response time will reduce. So this is what I have added in this question. Farooq, you can continue with your answer as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there is always a performance aspect to every design that you're making. So this is a very relevant question. It's a broad question. It doesn't have a simple answer. But the thing is that, I mean, API-led connectivity doesn't mandate you that you always strictly follow. I mean, you always have to have a three angles to your API or three layers to your API. If in some situations you might have a single API and you are calling it from somewhere within your organization. So it doesn't mandate. The design is there for your guidelines. Then in your situation, you need to be wary of the fact that, I mean, which is the best suited layer for your API, or do you need to split your APIs into multiple layers or not? So from a practical aspect, you need to see all these considerations while designing your APIs. I mean, sometimes you would need a system level API, and then you are directly talking from a presentation API. So, or an experience to your system level API. Sometimes you don't have an experience level API, and your process level API is directly talking to your system level API. And sometimes your system API doesn't exist because it already exists in an end system. So there are different situations and scenarios, and you always have to consider performance and caching and all, as Zubair mentioned, are very important. So you can avoid different round trips if your data is not changing. Yeah, if you have any specific thing, you can let me know. Otherwise, this is a general answer to your question.
Next question was asked, how is security managed in an application network?
Yeah, security, there are like, I think, majorly there are two levels of security. One is authentication, the other one is authorization. I mean, just like in case of web applications or mobile applications, you have to implement these two aspects. So same is the case with the APIs or integrations that you are exposing. So I think MuleSoft as a platform is providing the framework via the API manager and the API gateway. They have the provision to handle both, and you can have like external authorization servers, or you can have basic authentication. So all the provisions are there. You have to implement that. So I mean, just basic API building and exposing it outside doesn't work. You have to implement security on top of it.
Okay, so is there any disadvantage for API-led connectivity? So this was the next question. Actually, I think the cost may be the factor for disadvantaging, maybe because we have managing a many systems. So there would be a cost specific disadvantage for API-led connectivity. So Zaid, can you please jump into if you want to answer? Zaid, are you there? Okay, seems like he is not in meeting. I have actually unmute him already.
He's here.
Okay, so someone comment here. So how can we connect with the API like connectivity? In later session, we will have our demo sessions, and we will actually planning for those as well for who are new to MuleSoft. So we are planning for just starting from the basic, and then we will go to the intermediate, and then in the advanced level. So in our meetup, you can see the demos, you can see the small projects, you can see the presentations, a lot of things for learning related to the MuleSoft.
Yeah, I think, I mean, since API-led connectivity is kind of new thing for people, so maybe we can have a total dedicated session on it, and then we
Yes,
can deep dive into different aspects and pros and cons, and why to adopt it and why not to adopt it. So those kind of things.
and even we can.
Sorry, Zubair, I was muted and I was talking while I was muted. Sorry.
Okay,
that,
okay, no issue, no issue.
okay, first of all, I would thank all you, especially Zubair and Wes, for this good session. And actually, you were asking about the disadvantages of the API-led connectivity, as Farooq said, that API-led connectivity, as it is a new concept for most of uh, from the developer world. So we may have a dedicated or more than one dedicated sessions on this topic. Um, one thing that is at top of my mind currently, that actually it's vulnerable to the hackers, because normally it's a gateway to your resources, and as a single gateway to your resources, it can be easily uh, 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 flooded by the hackers. But there are a lot of other things that we can uh, uh, discuss about, but we may need some dedicated session on this API connectivity. Uh, that's my thinking for this.
And,
That's what I think.
yeah, I would add to it that it's kind of an architecture or a guiding principles. So, and if the architecture is not followed in its essence, then it can be counterproductive as well. So that's my high level
Yeah,
abstract answer
that's sure.
to it. So, but I mean, again, this needs a greater time and discussion, that what are the disadvantages exactly, and how to avoid them, and how to understand, first of all, what this architecture is.
And also from the next meetup, we have a Trava for the MuleSoft developers. They will actually give the 3 lucky winners, 3 vouchers to the lucky winners after some small quizzes. So in next meetup, we will introduce this thing as well. And for the 3 lucky winners who will answer the questions, or who will properly show their interest in the meetup. So in next meetup, we will have training vouchers or a certification voucher for those developers as well. So this is what we have in the presentation. So for the next meetup, please stay tuned with our MuleSoft meetup group in MuleSoft portal. So hopefully you will enjoy this session, and we will share the recording with you people after this session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.